Well, the holidays are right around the corner, and I can't think of an easier way to entertain than with wine and cheese. But which wines and which cheeses? That's exactly what we're going to explore tonight on the Sunday Sipper Club with our special guest who joins me live from San Francisco. I'm Natalie McLean, editor of Canada's largest wine review site at nataliemclean.com, and you have joined us here on the Sunday Sipper Club, where we gather every week at 6 p.m. on Sundays, New York, Toronto time, to talk to the most intriguing people in the food and wine world. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you can join us. And before we get going, and before I give the full intro to our guest tonight, please post in the comments below, what is your favorite type of cheese? I would love to know. And I'm going to refresh on Facebook just to see that you can see and hear and everything's going well. But I would love to know, what's your favorite type of cheese? And what have you got in your glass tonight? All right, excellent. Rochelle has already joined us. And Anne, Rochelle in Ottawa, Anne in Halifax. Paul is in Virginia. I'm looking festive tonight. Yes, I'm a bit like a Christmas tree. Thank you, Paul, for noticing. All right, so on to our guest. I'm glad it's all working technically. Our guest this evening is one of the planet's most authoritative writers on cheese and wine pairings. She's won 6 James Beard Awards, that's like the Oscars for the food and wine world, for her books. And she also is a regular instructor at the Cheese School of San Francisco. And she joins me live right now from her home in San Francisco. Welcome to the Sunday Sipper Club, Laura Werlin.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored that you want me as one of your guests. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is such a popular topic. People are dying to hear from you, Laura. I just want to welcome Dave Head has joined us, and Beverly from California. Excellent. So Laura, I just did the sort of high, brief outline. Fill in the details for us and tell us a little bit about your personal life.
My personal life. Well, we'll see about that. No. Well, first of all, let me just say that I did not win 6 James Beard Awards, though that would be wonderful. I did, however, win one, and then I was one of my other books was nominated.
Oh, perfect.
So I didn't want the James Beard organization to think, well, why is she claiming all these awards?
No, it's not you, it's me. So I'm claiming it. So, okay. But you published 6 books on the topic of cheese. That's what I conflated. But you know what? We all know they were worthy, every one of them, of a James Beard Award. So anyway.
All right. So to fill it in.
Yes.
So I actually was in a completely different field. I was in television news. And I did that starting in college. And I was behind the scenes. I wasn't too much. I did some reporting as well, but mostly it was behind the scenes. And after doing it for a long time, I decided that I wanted to go off and pursue my passion, which was writing about food. So I took some food writing courses in San Francisco, and then I went to my first conference of what's called the International Association of Culinary Professionals, which I think you're familiar with.
Yes.
And
IACP, yes.
IACP, exactly. And they have cookbook awards every year. And I sat in this auditorium by myself. I didn't know anybody at that point in food. And I was inspired, just the notion of writing a book. And although I had never wanted to do that before, in any case, I knew that if I were to write a book, instantly I knew it would be about cheese, and not just cheese, but cheese in America. What was happening with artisan cheesemaking in the U.S. And so I never looked back from that crazy notion, and it was sort of crazy because people thought that I'd lost my mind leaving TV news to write about American cheese. And
it's quite a switch. Yeah.
Right. They thought it was like, what is there to write about single wrap slices, Anyway. And so, so it went from there. And I have, I'm still, American artisan cheese is still my focus, though I talk and write and lecture about cheeses from all over the world. And I've certainly traveled to visit cheesemakers in Europe, that is.
Wow. And why did you choose cheese, Laura, as opposed to artisan bread or charcuterie or all kinds of other, or wine even? Like, I mean, I know you do pair cheese and wine, but you consider yourself foremost a cheese expert. So why cheese?
Well, because I loved it. I didn't know anything about it, but it's just sort of an example of, pursuing your passion. And I was just lucky that I was able to find, an agent who found a publisher who believed in the idea of a book written by someone who had never written a book and who certainly wasn't known in cheese, about American cheese. And so I really had a lot of lucky breaks along the way as far as getting launched. But it was really just born of a absolute unadulterated passion. So,
Excellent. Wow.
yeah.
I can identify, but on the wine side of things. So
Right.
I get it.
Well, and so cheese. Once my first book came out and I went on a book tour and all of that, I was asked frequently to do cheese and wine pairings,
Hmm.
and I always said sure because I loved wine and I had taken classes in wine, but anyway, I wanted to do that, and so that is really what led to my second book, which is the one that won the Beard Award, called the All American Cheese and Wine Book, and that's just sort of an exhaustive tome on how to pair cheese and wine, or wine and cheese, depending how you look at it.
Yes, right. Earrings first and then the outfit, or outfit first, then the cheese.
There you go.
Anyway, excellent. That's awesome. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Lori Kilmartin, who joins us, and she loves wine and cheese. Rob is wondering, Laura, if your books have been translated into Dutch at all.
Well, I don't know is the short answer. It's possible because there have been some international sales, but I don't know if they've been in the Netherlands or not.
Okay, all right, fair
Sorry.
enough. So Google it, Rob, on Amazon. I'm sure Amazon knows the answers to everything.
Yeah.
So you would find a translation there if it exists. Welcome, Dave Head. And he's pointing out that we have a Cheese of the Month Club, cheesy place. Gourmet cheese of the month. That's interesting. And Rick Daldera
Where is
says,
that? I'm
yes,
sorry.
yeah, no, absolutely. Dave, could you tell us where that is? He's a part of a club that subscribes to three cheeses a month, great selections. It must be in Ontario because Dave is in Ontario.
Uh-huh.
So I'd like to know about that too. So Dave, post in the comments below where you're getting that. Rick Dalderis, wine and cheese is the only way to dine. Absolutely. So we've got favorites of brie and cheddar and others that are coming in. So folks, if I miss your comment, please post it below again because these comments go by so quickly. Lou Michelle, welcome. Excellent. And if you're just joining us, we have Laura Werlin here tonight, a cheese and wine expert, and we're going to take the deep dive into that topic. All right. Okay, so Laura, let's we're going to get into very specific pairings, of course, here because you've suggested some before we had this live chat, which I'm dying to, and I've been trying to hold back from eating all the cheeses before this show began. So it's been very difficult, I must say, because you chose some wonderful combinations. But maybe you can describe one of the strangest or most unusual pairings you've had. We talked about this before, but I'd love to, for people who missed that, tell us about this unusual pairing and why it worked when perhaps we might think it would not work.
Right. Well, at the beginning of my exploration of cheese and wine, I was attending a reception, and they had French champagne, and they had a blue cheese from the mountains on the eastern side of France called Bleu de Gex. And I had never tasted that particular blue cheese before. And again, I wasn't. This was long before I was writing about cheese, but trust me, when there was a table with cheese, I went to it. And so I tasted this blue cheese with this champagne. It happened to be Veuve Clicquot, and I went crazy for it. I never would have thought. I mean, because blue cheese, you think of. Well, back then, I actually really wasn't pairing anything. I wasn't paying attention to that. I just liked cheese and I liked wine, and I had them together, which is true for so many people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I just really fell in love with the bubbles, and then I began to think about it. And when are bubbles served? They're served with salty foods. Whether it's
Yes,
caviar, right?
that's true.
Or yeah. So it made sense in that way, and also the fact that a lot of blue cheeses are creamy. and that's when you want to call into service bubbles, because they act as sort of scrubbing bubbles to cleanse your palate, and then make way for another sip, another bite, another sip, and it goes like that. So but when I was so really naive, I guess, about cheese and wine pairing, and sort of the magic that can happen between those two things, that's when I came upon this cheese and this champagne and fell in love.
Wow. And you have recommended a bubbly tonight,
Mm-hmm.
or you asked me to get a bubbly. What I got was a Chandon bubbly from California.
Mm-hmm.
You were suggesting an American one, so I was picking wines I could get here locally in Ontario, and you wanted me to match that with a goat brie or other soft ripened goat cheese, which I have as well. So
Okay.
maybe as I sip and munch, I'll do the heavy lifting of actually trying these while you just talk. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Why do
Well,
these work? Why does a bubbly and a goat brie? Why do those particular ones work
well,
together?
so there's a cheese actually in the U.S.
Okay.
called Humboldt Fog. I don't know if it makes its way across the border or not. It's made
Okay.
close to the Oregon border, but it is it's a goat cheese, and it's what's called a soft ripened cheese. So soft ripened is the kind, like brie is the best known. It's got that white, so,
Right.
bloomy rind, as it's called, and so what I wanted you, and so when I had Humboldt Fog with sparkling wine, I was just really wowed by the combination, and the reason is because goat cheese has a lemony characteristic to it,
Yeah.
and
And why is that? Why does it have that lemony? Is it what they're
well,
eating or the goats are eating?
no, I think it's the composition of the milk, and
Okay.
also the cultures that are added to it,
Okay.
which is really what gets milk from its cultures are what sour a milk. So actually, goat's milk right out of the goat is pretty sweet, but then it gets transformed. The lactose, the milk sugar, gets transformed into lactic acid,
Okay.
and somehow it's probably the combination of the cultures that goat cheesemakers use, and probably something in the milk too. But I did not take microbiology in high school or college, so I don't know what that is. But what I do know is that the goat cheeses, very often the fresher style ones, tend to be pretty, like I said, lemony, and many sparkling wines are too. But then but for this, I felt like there was a richness also to goat brie in particular,
Hmm.
uh, that, and depending how ripe it is, that makes a difference as well. But that would be, kind of a nice pairing with a sparkling wine, which again, going back to what I said about the bubbles, kind
Yeah.
of cleansing the palate, and then also the typical acidity that one finds in sparkling wines
Hmm.
would bridge over to the to that tangy quality that you get in most fresher style goat cheeses. So you
Absolutely.
tell me, did it work?
It worked. It really did. You know what you're
Okay.
talking about. Not that you needed my validation. But the cheese was kind of mouth coating, as soft cheeses are, and that bubbly cut through like a silver knife with its acidity and its zest. It's beautiful combination. And as you say, one helps the other. You take a sip of the wine, then a bite of the cheese, and you want to go back and forth. You don't satiate out too quickly because you've got the two of them going.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And, I mean, I would just like to say to people that there is, first of all, there's no right or wrong when it comes to pairing. And more than that, what you're looking for ideally, if when you are pairing, is one of three things, or what I call, the way I define them, is that you have what I call Switzerland. So you have this neutral pairing,
Okay.
and you have the cheese and you have the wine, and you have them together, and they're fine. They taste fine. Nothing wrong. They play well in the sandbox together. And then you have what I call the Titanic. So as we all know, that didn't end very well.
Oh.
And so you have the cheese and you have the wine, and together they make these other flavors that you kind of wish you hadn't had. Luckily, that doesn't happen very often.
What are the bad flavors? Just the clashing, or
Oh,
other
yeah.
descriptors to?
Well, it can be, for instance, it can be soapy. So the
Mm,
same kind of cheese that you're eating, the soft ripened cheese,
yes.
that with that kind of cheese, the rind is the first thing that starts to deteriorate when it's going, downhill.
Okay.
And so you will taste that and taste it with wine. And at first it might taste fine, but then all of a sudden it kind of goes south. And all you're left with is sort of a bitter and soapy flavor. So that can happen.
Okay.
Another thing that can happen is you can end up with a metallic taste in your mouth. And I found that to happen, sometimes with blue cheeses, certain blue cheeses, and super tannic red wines. That is, a lot of people put blue cheese with red wine, and I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that.
No.
But then again, I was talking with friends last night who had put a fairly ripe Pinot Noir with a blue cheese,
Really?
a couple of blue cheeses, and they loved it. So, but I think what saved that is the fruit in the wine. So if you have a really old Burgundy, I think that's not going to work so well.
No, that's going to kill that Burgundy. It's just,
Well,
nasty,
it will.
very
And
nasty.
Right. Well, and then the other kind of pairing that I strive for is what I call nirvana. And that's when you have the cheese and you have the wine, and all of a sudden the angels come and they sing,
Really?
you're like, yeah.
What do
And
they sing, Laura? I'm just wondering if my angels are singing the same tune.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. They sing that the cheese and the wine are great on their own, and boy, are they even greater together.
It's true.
So,
It's true. It lifts it to a heavenly combination that the one on its own, either or, could not achieve by itself. It's true.
Yeah.
A
Good.
cloud of sensory pleasure. Yes.
Well, and I was just going to say, along the sparkling wine lines, particularly as we go into the holiday season, that is I think the overall best cheese pairing wine there is. So if you have a selection of 3 or 5 cheeses, sparkling wine is going to touch pretty much all the bases.
It is. Well. And sparkling wine, I think, is the wine that can handle the toughest food matches. So if you've got oysters or all kinds of things, from spicy to eggs to anything, it's just the wine that can take it all. And so, again, it's the holidays, it's festive, we're opening up bubbly. I just think, sparkling wine is terrific with so many. Is there any cheese that sparkling wine really doesn't work with?
Well, that's one of those cases where if you like the wine and you like the cheese, it's particularly sparkling wine, it kind of doesn't matter. But
sure,
I don't know that there may be some of the stronger cheeses, which can sometimes be creamy, which is what you do want with sparkling wine. But there's a category of cheese or family of cheese called washed rind. And in France, maybe the best known one is a cheese called Epoisse.
Oh, yes. Very stinky, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like ammonia or something.
Well, it can be. Yes. Okay. Sometimes it's likened to like the socks in your gym bag. Obviously not clean ones.
Just nasty.
It is nasty. But, they've actually done some chemical analyses, and it's exactly what you're smelling in that cheese is exactly what exists in our human biology.
And some people pay money for this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm one of them, actually.
Okay.
There's an Italian cheese called Taleggio, which is a little milder, and that might work with sparkling wine. But I think very often the reason it doesn't work is because those strong cheeses can kill the
anything.
wine.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, JP says he loves wine and cheese. He's not as sure what to pair, like which pairings work best. You're going to learn that tonight, JP. I'm glad you're here. And Jim Clark, excellent topic. Stephen Andrews loves blue cheese and port. Lise Gagne, she's stepping in late. That's okay. You can catch up, Lise. And Fred, I believe, was here earlier. Again, the comments go so quickly. He likes the pictures that we're showing, Laura, of your cheese presentations, because as we're talking, I'm intermixing the slides of pictures that you sent me. So they're loving the layouts and that sort of thing. So that's great.
Terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lise loves sweet wine and cheese. Okay, so let's continue on here with our pairings. And again, just repost your comment, folks, if I miss it. Also, I tend to forget this, but please share this video. If you're enjoying our chat, please share it. And next week, we will pick somebody who's shared this video tonight with a comment to win one of Laura's books. And we'll be talking more about Laura's books shortly, and we'll get her to show us her books. But you can win one of her books. She writes fabulous books on cheese, and that's what we'll be giving away based on those who share tonight. Or if you're watching this video replay, you still have a chance because we don't pick the winner till next week. At the same time, I'll also be announcing the winner of last week's contest, and that winner will be getting a copy of the Red Wine Diet book. We had a chat last week, Laura, just so you know, with Dr. Edward Miller, who talked about the health benefits of wine. So that was last week's topic. Anyway, so we're looking forward to that. So speaking of that, if you have some of your books there, Laura, why don't we hold them up and you can tell us a little bit about each one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can you see it?
Yes, we can see that. Yes.
This is the New American Cheese, as you can see, and this was my first book.
Okay.
And so it has 55 profiles of American cheesemakers and 80 recipes, and all kinds of information about cheese and about wine and about how cheese is made and the history of cheese making in the U.S. and things like that. And then that's the one that led to the All American Cheese and Wine book, which is the one that won the Beard Award. And this is all about how to pair cheese and wine. That's beautiful. That's all it is.
That's terrific. And all of these, I assume, are available on Amazon or online
retailers? I hope so.
I would assume, yeah.
Well, I only say I hope so because I know that the Cheese and Wine book is it's in the process of being reprinted. And so it might be out of stock at the moment. I don't know for sure.
Well, congratulations. People can pre-order, though, or put themselves on a wait list on Amazon. So, but that's kudos to you if you've already gone to a reprint.
Oh, there have been several because this book's been out for a while. So it's just a question now. Yeah. So it's publishing speak. We don't need to go into it because all it does is annoy me, frankly. But anyway, we authors have a hard time having our books, stay in print. Anyway, and then this is called, as you can see, Laura Werlin's Cheese Essentials. And when I was talking about the different families of cheese, this is what I wrote about here. And the whole idea is if you understand the families of cheese, and of which there are 8, then you can walk into any cheese shop, of which there are many wonderful ones in Canada, oh my goodness, and really have a sense of what you're doing without even knowing the names of cheeses. Because I think that most people are like me, where you have a wine, for instance, and you're like, oh, I can't remember what it was. Well, same is true with cheese.
That's true.
Yeah. So what I contend is that you don't need to know the exact cheese you had before. All you need to do is be able to describe it a little bit to the cheesemonger, who can then point you in the direction of it, maybe a similar cheese. It might not be the same one, but anyway. And so I wanted to make cheese more simple because people are intimidated by it and end up buying the same 1 or 2 cheeses every time. And so I'd like people to expand their cheese horizons, and particularly in Canada. I'm not kidding. The cheeses up there are so amazing. And I had the good fortune of going to Toronto a couple of years ago and visiting the Cheese Boutique, I think it's, or Cheese Teak, is that what it's called? Anyway, now I'm blanking on the name, but it's
but someone will jump in on the comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, help me out. The most magnificent store, not just cheese, though that's certainly their focus, but they have wonderful products. Anyway, and if you go in there and you see all these cheeses and you think, oh my goodness, where do I start? Well, first of all, a good cheesemonger will help you, as they do there. And also just knowing the families of cheese, knowing that you like blue cheese, then gravitate toward the blue cheese section. Knowing you don't like blue cheese, stay away from it. That's a whole family of cheese that you can avoid or go toward, depending on your preferences.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you. The other 3, I'm going to hold them up if I can get to them at the same time, because these are my fun books. 2 of them are on grilled cheese and 1 of them on mac and cheese. Let's see. Nice. Can you see them?
Yes, I can see them. Yes. Okay. Grilled cheese. Gotcha.
And not surprisingly, my first grilled cheese book, called Great Grilled Cheese, I believe that's still in print, actually. And that has become just so popular. I mean, it was popular from the day, that it was published. And that's what led to my second book on grilled cheese, because why not? And so each of them has 50 recipes for grilled cheese. And in fact, the photos that you're putting up of me teaching were from a class I taught in September in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it was grilled cheese and wine pairing.
Ooh,
So
nice.
we had grilled cheese and we had wine, but anyway, and then cheese also just on its own, so that people could taste the cheeses in their natural form, followed by in the grilled cheese form with the wine pairings that we had set out to do. So all kinds of fun with grilled cheese.
That's fantastic. And oh, these comments have been flying by with lots of comments and questions. I'm just going to pick off a few here. Stephen Andrews says, "What pairs with Limburger?" Before we get to,
I would say beer, actually.
Oh, beer. Okay.
Yeah.
Question answered. Okay. Yeah, that's a really strong stinky cheese, right?
It is very strong, and traditionally it is paired with beer. And don't ask me what kind of beer, because
I won't.
I'm not a beer expert.
And this isn't a beer show, so
okay,
we're good. Where's Limburger from? Is that Switzerland, or where is that? Limburger, Germany? Germany.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, stinky cheeses. All right. Rick Delderis, Laura, enjoyed meeting and talking with you at the Pebble Beach Food and Wine event a few years ago. So,
yeah.
Yes, you've got some
Thank you.
fans.
Well,
more than some.
I love that event so much.
I've heard good things about it, really good things.
Yeah, it's great.
Lori Kilmartin says, yes, the Cheese Boutique. I love it.
Thank
I take a cooler when I visit. Murray Johnson, I love Sunday nights. Tonight with two great authors, another informative evening, ladies. Okay, good. Murray's having fun. He's enjoying this. Okay.
Terrific. I hope he has a little cheese and wine alongside.
Yes. Does anybody? That's a great point. Folks, do you have any cheese with you tonight? I know I sent out a message earlier today to our regulars with the list of cheeses and wines, but I wonder if anyone is actually tasting a cheese and wine right now. If you are, please post in the comments below what's in your glass, what's on your plate. I would love to know. So Laura, let's go on to the next cheese and wine pairing. You suggested that I get a, a Chardonnay that's lightly oaked with, I did get Avonlea cloth-bound cheddar from PEI. And
terrific.
Absolutely. And with it, I went bi-coastal, not postal, but bi-coastal. Sorry. And I've got 5 vineyards from BC, Chardonnay from Mission Hill, and it's an unoaked Chardonnay. It's fresh, it's crisp, it's aged and fermented in stainless steel from BC, and then with the cheese from PEI on the other end. So why would these work?
Well, hopefully they do. And
sure they will.
I mean, we don't really think of pairing cheddar with white wine,
right?
But because of the basically the tanginess that often exists in cheddar,
yes.
Sometimes we call it sharp, but that's different. That to me is borderline. When it says sharp on it, that to me is borderline bitter, which a lot of people like, but it's not as wine friendly. And so, the reason I wanted you to get this Avonlea cheese is not only because it's really delicious.
It is.
And for those people who haven't heard of it, it is what's called a bandage wrapped cheddar. So what that means is right after the cheese is formed into its usually cylindrical shape, it is literally wrapped in cheesecloth. And then they put on, every cheesemaker is different. They might lard it with actual lard. So spread lard around the outside.
What does that do to it?
Well, or butter. And what those things do is that because that cheese is going to be sitting on an aging shelf with pretty low humidity for quite a while. It could be a year, maybe even 2 sometimes. And so that prevents the rind from cracking. And it doesn't flavor the cheese at all. It's just to keep the cheesecloth adhering to the outside of the cheese. And the whole point of having it aged like that is because oxygen is that cheese's friend for a variety of reasons. But you don't want it to dry out and become, a rock. So that's why they spread the butter or the lard or whatever it might be on it. But it's not, it doesn't penetrate the cheese or anything.
Wow. And why did you suggest an unoaked Chardonnay with this? It's working beautifully, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Because oak is not really our friend when it comes to cheese pairing.
Okay.
As discouraging as that might be, particularly white wine. And the reason is because very often they're going to be kind of a nice parity between the cheese and the wine. But if it's super oaky, again, speaking in the Chardonnay vernacular at the moment, what ends up happening is that oak gets exaggerated. So whereas it might have been in balance just sipping the wine, very often a cheese will take it off balance, and the oak is there, and you're like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm licking the side of a barrel. So,
That's great. Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
picture. So the
yeah,
cheese will emphasize the oak.
it
Interesting.
can.
Is it
It
the
can.
proteins in the cheese that are somehow?
Well, it could very well be. It also could be the fat, believe it or not. And I, but I don't, again, I skipped that microbiology class, but I know it's microbiological in nature, the answer to your question. So I don't exactly know what it is
Sure.
that, but I think it's also how things, how and where we taste things on our tongue,
Sure.
on our palate. All
Yeah.
of those things will create that effect. And so what I was hoping with the Chardonnay, either unoaked or lightly oaked, and the cheese is that for one, the wine might cut through the richness of the cheese because it is a rich cheese, and also that it would not I don't know, I guess it would just kind of match the tanginess in the cheese as
It
well.
does. It has a zest, and then
Hmm.
there's the tang of the cheese. It's nice. I would have thought that this cheddar would have needed an oak Chardonnay, like to stand up to cheddar, right? But
Right.
it actually is a better combination.
Well, or again, lightly oaked. And a lot of people ask me, if I want to open that big, Cabernet Sauvignon that's sitting in my cellar, what cheese would I put with it? And so it's the same answer, actually. It's this bandage wrap cheddar, because the
Hmm.
bandage wrap cheddars have so much what they call umami,
Ah,
that sort of fifth taste. It's not sweet, it's not salty, it's not sour, it's not bitter, but it's got that savory
savory
characteristic.
deliciousness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So as long as that Cabernet is, I would say, a little on the older side, a super young one has so much pronounced oak that very often anyway,
And
that,
tannin.
yeah, and tannin, exactly. So you want to mellow those things a little bit and then go for that cheddar.
Oh, such a good combination. So JP says no wine for me tonight, but he is eating a medium cheddar, a Gruyere, and a
Gruyere.
Swiss Gruyere. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
sounds great. He went to the mountains for two of those. The
Yes.
the Gruyere and the Swiss. They're Swiss, sometimes called Emmentaler.
Yeah.
Those two are both Swiss.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lori loves truffle cheese. We're going to get to that in a moment, Lori. So hold that thought. Stephen
Hmm.
Andrews loves Oka, smoked
Hmm.
Balderson, Baby Bell, and Alsace. Oh, with Alsace Gewürztraminer tonight. That sounds
Aha.
like a good combo.
Well, that smoked oka and Gewürztraminer, that's brilliant. I'm all for that.
Spice and smoke,
Yeah,
commingling.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Guy
A little
Seguin.
sweetness.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
exactly. Guy Seguin says Cabernet Sauvignon with Le Rustique, a soft ripened cheese, and some 2-year-old Balderson cheddar, both from Quebec, I believe.
Interesting. Okay.
Rochelle,
Wow.
yeah, they're really on fire here. Rochelle, I love cheese. My top three would be Parmigiano Reggiano, Valenque, and
Oh,
Blue Harbor
Balancé.
Valence.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with cheese names as I am with wine names. So
Sure, of
please
course.
do correct me because I'm just going to butcher the whole cheese language here. Blue Harbor blue cheese from Halifax, she loves too. She's a maritimer. And
Well, I was going to say that's not a cheese that I get down here, but I'd love to try it because the other two, Balancé and what was the first one?
so we've got, let's see,
I went by two. Oh, Parmesan original.
Parmigiano Reggiano.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are both great cheeses. Valençay, for those that don't know, is
Yeah.
it's a goat cheese from the Loire Valley,
Oh,
and it's ash covered, so it's edible vegetable ash, and they used to use that as a means of deterring flies in the pre-refrigeration days.
that sounds
And
nasty.
yeah, I know. Well, the ash has no flavor. It's yeah, the flies were, but the ash has no flavor, and
Okay.
it lends a real beauty. Probably everybody had seen it, and maybe not known what it was, if you'd been in a cheese shop.
I've
So
got one
balance,
tonight because based on
yeah,
what you suggested, Laura.
uh-huh.
So what is the ash made of?
Well, I have yet to find the actual answer to that because I mean I've heard grapevine, which
Yeah.
would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
Uh, And I don't know, because it's obviously a very specialized process, because that it's not going to taste like an ashtray.
Mm-hmm.
And and it actually, what it does is it does serve to neutralize the surface of the cheese as that cheese ages, and that allows it basically allows it to ripen, to mature. And yeah, and usually there's the white rind as well as the ash somewhere in there, not just
Absolutely.
ash.
Yeah, no. I've got these all on a plate, but they're going more than room temperature, so they're sort of seeping into the plate. So I'm not going to try to lift them up or show them.
Oh,
But yeah, very
well,
interesting.
so I mean, as a general guideline for people, if they can find a white wine from the Loire Valley, like a
Yes.
Sauvignon Blanc or a Chenin Blanc, and then a dry one, and then find either a soft ripened goat cheese like that goat brie you had, or Loire cheeses. They certainly make their way to North America. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And
then
so you were saying with this cheese pairing, you did not want me to get a New Zealand or a South African Sauvignon Blanc
yeah.
for this purpose. So
Mhm.
why not those?
Well, you certainly can. I just find them to be so sort of assertive on the grapefruit front, and
Right.
on the on the gooseberry, and all the things that define the Southern Hemisphere Sauvignon Blancs, that I don't find it as happy a marriage
Okay.
with these kinds of goat cheeses as I do those from the Northern Hemisphere. But as I said early on, for people that, if you like the cheese and you like the wine, go for it. It
Yeah.
doesn't, the pairing will work for you.
Absolutely. And so I have one from Sauvignon Blanc from Monterey, California, cool
Mhm.
climate. And I'm finding this is not so aggressive on, fresh cut grass, rev your lawnmowers type thing. So it's got more of
Right.
the lime citrus lift. And I think it's working well with the goat cheese as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, again, Sauvignon Blanc, it does depend what the style is,
Yep.
to, in terms of what it's going to marry with. But I most of all, I encourage people to try all these things on their own and get, say, three different kinds of Sauvignon Blanc and a goat cheese, or maybe three goat cheeses, whatever. But really kind of mix and match and see what works for you, and then try to think about, what is it? Is it that there's tanginess in both that I'm really, find works well together? And also, one of the things that matters with cheese and wine pairing is not just flavor, but texture. So you have a light wine like Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot
Yeah.
Grigio, it's probably not going to marry quite as well with a cheese that has a heavier, kind of creamier texture, or too big, basically. You want to pair textures of cheese and wine. So with that creamy cheese, you might be better off with a Chardonnay, which has more mouthfeel, more fullness in the mouth than a Sauvignon Blanc typically does.
Absolutely. And Laura, your audio is really good, but something is moving around, maybe on your
Oh,
desk.
all
Maybe
right.
it's your, no, it's okay.
I
I
get so excited. I just, I move
I
around.
know it's hard. It's
Is this better now?
yes, I think it was
Okay.
just your cord was moving or something is moving, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So speaking of Chardonnay, I've got also from that same winery in Monterey a Chardonnay from the cool climate. Um, And so, what would this go well with? A cool climate Chardonnay. Well, I guess we already talked about the Mission Hill, but this is a California Chardonnay. This, in this case, would this be working with Brie or something like
Yeah,
that?
I
Yeah.
was just going to say, absolutely. Yeah, and even a triple cream might work. Triple creams. So what a triple cream is,
Oh yeah.
it's a cheese that looks like brie,
Yep.
but they've added cream to the vat with the milk to boost the butter fat and the richness.
Wow.
And some of the best known ones are Explorateur or San Andre.
Bria
I
Savarin.
Bria Savarin, absolutely, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And that too is very good with sparkling wine. Again,
Yes.
for the same reason, the bubbles and the cream are just terrific together.
The
So,
one I'm now licking my fingers because the cheese is melting. But anyway,
uh-huh.
we have an amazing cheese up here called Riopel, named after the
Mhm.
Quebec artist Jean-Paul Riopel, and it is a
Yes.
triple. brie, triple cream brie.
Yes.
And it is amazing, and it's sliding off my plate fast and
Oh, I'm
furious.
glad you got that. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I've actually had that when I was in Toronto. I did a cheese and wine seminar at Toronto Food and Wine at the time, and this was maybe 2 years ago.
mm-hmm.
And and Riopel got on my radar, and we had it at the seminar,
So
and
good.
it's darn good.
Oh,
It's really good.
and we can eat the
Yeah.
rind on this, right?
Yeah, well, that's personal preference.
Okay.
So two things when you have in mind that kind of cheese,
All right.
in other words, the soft ripeness.
Yeah.
So for one, that is, as I said earlier, the part of the cheese that starts to go first is that rind. So if that's the case, it's going to smell and maybe even taste a little bit like ammonia. And not that anybody has actually tasted ammonia, I hope, but we know what it smells like. So you don't. So that's where you wouldn't eat the rind, and because the inside of the cheese might still be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once the cheese is gone, though, it's gone. But then the other thing is it really is personal preference. If you like, I like the rind on that kind of cheese because it offers a textural sort of difference between the creamy inside and the more toothsome rind. So I like that textural contrast. And but not everybody does. The one thing I would say is when you go to your holiday parties this year, and if there's a cheese like that on the table, do not dig out the center and leave the rind behind. That's cheese etiquette 101.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Just cut the whole piece and eat what part you want, and wrap the rest in your napkin. And I don't care, put it under your host's pillow, but just don't.
That's
don't
true.
leave it behind.
You've seen the detritus on a salad bar or a cheese bar.
Yeah.
Oh. But
Exactly.
is I wonder if there's any parallel between sort of meat that's close to the bone and cheese that's close to the rind. Is it juicier, sweeter, more flavorful, the cheese that's right beside the rind, the way the meat is with a
Well,
pork chop?
yeah, no, it's a great question. So the reason that it's called soft ripened is because it ripens or ages, or as it does that, it gets softer.
Okay.
Most cheeses get harder. It's a process of moisture loss. But
Okay.
the interaction of the molds, the bacteria molds that create that white rind, and the proteins in the cheese serve to break down that cheese, and that begins just under the rind. So very often you'll see a cheese like a brie that looks almost like it's three layers. You've got the rind, then you've got a sort of a creamier layer, and then you've got a little more chalky, a little more solid looking layer. It's going to
Okay.
be a slightly different color, maybe a little whiter. And so when you eat the rind, you're going to get every morsel of that creaminess that's starting to happen. And I love that.
Mm.
But again, though, not everybody likes that rind, but so all you have to do is use a good knife like a butter knife really, to dig out that creamy part, because that's where the goods are, exactly, like the meat close to the bone.
Oh, nice. Some
Yeah.
great questions here. JP, excellent question. Wines have a point system. Why doesn't or does cheese have a point system? If
Well, I think that wines have a point system based on the magazine in which they are appearing, right? So if
Yes.
it's Wine Spectator, that's their point system. There isn't, I don't think, an official, well, there probably is. You could answer this better, Natalie, but an official point system, I suppose, when you're judging, there must be. But even that might be based on that particular competition. So in cheese, we do have a point system in the sense that there is cheese judging, and depending how that contest or competition has been structured, they get ratings. It would be 1 to 100, or it might be 1 to 50, there are all different ways of doing it. There isn't, however, an official one. It is true, and probably just because there isn't a magazine to champion that cause, at least not yet. There are two wonderful cheese magazines, one called Culture
yes.
and the other is called Cheese Connoisseur.
Okay.
Those are great magazines, but neither of them rates cheeses like that.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Donna Whitaker, I like cheeses with rinds and soft centers like triple cream and brie or Humboldt Fog. Which wines would you recommend? I think you are starting to answer this. So I think we may have covered this, but just to recap, for these, would you go with the sort of Chardonnay from a cool climate for those rich
Well,
cheeses?
Humboldt Fog, it's the most wine-friendly cheese I've ever encountered,
I'm gonna have to find that.
and I'm glad to know that it makes it. Well, I don't know where she's commenting from, if it's the U.S. or if it's in Canada, but in any case, but yes, I would do a lightly oaked or unoaked Chardonnay. What you're going for is acidity, and you're
Okay.
also going for mouthfeel.
Okay.
And so as long as it's not, as long as it's got some Chardonnay, sort of typical characteristics, good fruit and everything, but also acidity, then yeah, that's exactly what I would do.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Then Lise says she just purchased a triple cream brie from Quebec. Which wine should she pair with it? She's got Cabernet Franc or a Pinot or something
Hmm.
else.
Well, I'm afraid I would go for the bubbles or the white wine with that, but
Yeah.
I would, but maybe the Pinot would work. It's so hard to know what the style of these wines are that you have there. But I typically don't pair red wine with triple cream cheeses. It tends to clash, and it's kind of closer to my Titanic analogy than it is Switzerland or Nirvana.
Absolutely.
Because
Okay.
what ends up happening, the reason is that the cream in that cheese tends to find tannins that even if you have a lightly tannic wine, red wine, or even white wine with oak, it tends to find those tannins and exaggerate them so amazingly that you're like, wait, this wine was in such great balance, and now I'm tasting with the cheese and
Yeah,
not so much.
that's true. Yeah.
So it
Amazing.
can happen.
Okay. Donna says she is in Ohio, but she gets her wine from Ontario. She must have a secret underground source.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
But yeah,
envious.
so she's in Ohio. Sam has joined us from BC. Best pairings for a Burgundian style Pinot Noir. And you actually suggested I get a Pinot Noir with
Hmm.
the truffle cheese, which I think I've
Right.
eaten all of it, but I'll see if there's a scrap here left for me to try because that is just addictive. So, truffle cheese, maybe tell us first what truffle cheese is.
Yeah, so it can be made with cow's milk or sheep's milk, not typically goat's milk. Oh, and it is with truffle, like little flecks of truffle are added to it, not truffle oil. Though sometimes there is a cheesemaker in Italy who adds a little to the rind, but basically it's little flecks of truffle, of black truffle, that are added to the milk, and then it becomes a truffle cheese. And of course, they're very aromatic and flavorful, so the cheese ends up tasting like truffle. But then you've got this sort of cream background for it, and it's truffles and cream all in one bite.
It reminds me of chocolate cake with this raspberry swirl through the middle, the swirl being the truffle, and it's
Oh,
so addictive. I mean,
oh,
yeah.
wow! What cheese did you get? I don't think I've seen this one.
Well, no, but it's the truffle
You mean in
cheese,
general?
and
Oh,
it's
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just comparing, and the way they've inflected it with the truffle through the middle. It's
Right.
like you're digging through that cake to get to that core.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the payoff, although it's scattered throughout, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so truffles and mushrooms. That's when you start to go into the Burgundy
Yes.
region. The red,
Yes. Hmm.
the Pinot Noir, and
Because it's got those essences, those aromas in the wine itself.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. That's exactly why. And also, yeah, I mean that is the main reason. And it's not always easy to find a pairing with Pinot, but that one works typically across the board. And I think the question was also about Burgundian cheeses.
Hmm.
To be honest, even when I was visiting a preeminent cheesemaker there, the one who basically made Epoisse the way what we know it to be today, and he would not serve his strong cheese with Pinot. He served it to us with the white Burgundy, a Chardonnay.
Oh.
And so there aren't that many Burgundian cheeses, at least that I know about. And most of them tend to be in the triple cream or washed rind category. So for the most part, I would not pair a red Burgundy, a Pinot Noir from Burgundy, with the Burgundy cheeses. I would go further afield to some of the harder cheeses, that are made outside of Burgundy. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My goodness, Laura, it's already 10 to the hour. So this
Oh,
has flown by. I would love to chat with you again.
sure.
Oh my gosh, the comments are still coming in. So anyway, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
if I could just finish then with the sweet
Yes,
wine, since
please.
we'll finish with dessert since that
Okay.
comment earlier.
Nice ending.
So and port and cheese too. So
Yes.
sweet wines, and you want to just you want to have an equal and opposite contrast. So
Okay.
if you have a super salty cheese, then you can go for that port or that super sweet. And that I love Inniskillen ice wine. So you can that's just a great way to go with blue cheese. And then, and so that's really what you're looking for. If you have just a mildly salty cheese, then you only want a mildly sweet wine, because otherwise the wine will taste too sweet, and you won't taste the cheese.
Yeah.
So just go equal and opposite and you're good to go.
Oh, that sounds great. Absolutely. There's so many good things to try. Have we, is there something we haven't covered tonight that you would like to
Oh
mention?
my goodness.
I know it's a big topic. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I'm going to say it again. I want people to feel, well, first of all, as we go into the holidays, I will say this, that you want to have, we all want to have cheese and wine, I think, all the time. Well, I do anyway,
yeah.
but particularly at the holiday time. So whenever you're entertaining, no matter what time of year, you want to have, if you're serving the cheese before dinner, like as an appetizer,
Okay.
then you want to have savory accompaniments as opposed to sweet ones. So
Okay.
savory meaning like olives or maybe even caramelized onions, which are sweet, but they also are kind of savory too.
Okay.
Those kinds of things that go with and then you only want maybe 3 cheeses because you don't want people to ruin their appetite.
Yes.
Then, or if you're serving it after dinner, then I recommend serving just 1 cheese and getting the perfect wine for it, like the perfect cheese and the perfect wine.
Nice.
And if it's going to be the wine that you're continuing with from dinner, big red wine, then you want to get probably that cheddar we talked about, that Avonlea bandage wrap cheddar from PEI.
Mm-hmm.
Or you want to finish with a triple cream. It's almost dessert-like. And then you can have like a sweet accompaniment, maybe even a little honey or something like that, or a jam.
Nice.
And then a sweet wine. Yeah.
Oh.
And that's a great way to either end the meal entirely or create the bridge between your main course and your dessert.
Oh, so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, we need part 2. Laura, we know your books are on Amazon.com. Where can we find you online? Your website, your social media. What would you like to mention? Where can we find you?
Well, my social is on Twitter and on Instagram. It's Cheese Lady. So it's CheezeeLady.
Okay.
And otherwise, my website, well, Facebook, Laura Werlin, or Laura B. Werlin. I post on both,
Okay.
B as in boy. Or my website is laurawerlin.com.
That's excellent. And a nice little sound effect there, too.
Oh,
Ta-da! This is so informative. This is a huge topic, but so educational tonight. We learned so much, so many great insights to get us ready for the holidays, and that is coming through on all the comments. Oh my goodness. They're flying by. So, Laura, thank you for joining us. I'm going to stay online, folks, for a bit longer, so stay tuned or keep online. But Laura, thank you so much. We're going to wish you all the best for your books, your upcoming books, your existing books, the sales of those, and all of your holiday plans. And thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
well, thank you for having me. It's totally my pleasure. And I hope to, maybe I can take one of your new online courses so I can learn still more about wine, because I think you'd be a great teacher. So
I didn't send you the $20 bill for that one, but thank you, Laura. Anyway,
you're very welcome. I really
so sweet. Very nice. Yeah, great topic. You got to come back.
Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate
Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Laura.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, let me just come back here to center. Wow, look at all you people commenting. Oh my goodness. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Lou, that was great. Thank you. Sam, Beverly. So great. Okay, Laura, come back. Loved it. You know what? We'll get her back, guys. But in, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 weeks' time, we have also another cheese expert coming on board, Janet Fletcher, also from San Francisco. This is such a huge topic. I mean, this could indeed be its own course. And we're going to keep going. Another great cheesy show. I call this show Come to Cheeses. It's a spiritual hour. Come to Jesus. Jesus, right? Da da da. Anyway, so my usual things that I forget to say. Please post in the comments below what was the most interesting thing you learned tonight. I always love this. I love to see what you guys are learning, what you loved. It helps me form the future shows. Also, share. If you love this conversation, whether you're watching it live or on the replay, share it. Let your peeps know, that your followers know that this is a conversation or a video chat worth watching. And also, you could win one of Laura's signed books, her beautiful cheese books. That's what we'll be picking next week. So you have tonight and next week to do this. When you share it, make a comment, and of course, why don't you follow? If you want to connect with me on social, these are all my links. So I've basically created links that will default to the various social media. If you type in nataliemclean.com/Facebook/Twitter/LinkedIn/Instagram, blah, 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 you can connect with me. And finally, I've been told to say this at the end. Please come join us. We are a happy tribe, a wine tribe, not just here on the Sunday Sipper Club, but also on the website. I have a newsletter, I have an app. I have so much more to offer you guys. So come, sign up, join us. All right, so we need to announce a winner. So, seeing if anybody's still here. Yes, good. Stephen Andrews is still here. Paul is still here, and Lou Michelle. All right, so the winner of Roger Corder's The Red Wine Diet book is, drumroll, yes, I like to hold back, Tom Head. Tom Head, woo! All right, Tom, you need to email me. We get that book to you this week. So share, etc., and we'll be back next week. Next week, you know who we have next week? It's going to be awesome, is Vig. So almost the best known, most famous restaurant in Vancouver is Vig's. It's Italian cuisine, but this is a man who cares about wine pairings. So it's Indian cuisine, but he has these most exotic wine pairings. And both Vig, the chef, who is an award-winning chef and cookbook author, and he's on Dragon's Den, Hello Celebrity, he'll be here with his sommelier, Sean, and they'll be talking about the intersection, the matches of spicy dishes with wine. Do I not bring you the best people every week? Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm glad you liked it, Murray, JP, Lou. All right. So, guys, I am going to sign off for tonight. As always, you can catch the replay. And this is fun. It's the highlight of my week. So take care, and I hope you enjoy some great cheese and wine matches. We'll be back next week. Take care.